Coming up on American Medicine Today, caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's is a serious struggle. We speak to Dr. Peter Rabens about the latest treatment options, as well as strategies to help caregivers cope. Next, Chris tells us how a terrible fall left him in severe pain. After undergoing exclusive procedures from the Bonati Spine Institute, he is now back to life completely pain-free. Finally, we speak to author of the Mom Strong book series and Washington congressional candidate Heidi St. John, who will discuss the struggles of bringing a conservative voice back to America. Will the silent right decide to stand up and fight the progressive left? Find out coming up on American Medicine Today.
Featuring cutting-edge science and medical innovation, touching personal stories of recovery from pain, along with political, social, and healthcare issues plaguing our nation. This is American Medicine Today, brought to you by the Bonati Spine Institute and Alfred Bonati, MD.
Thank you so much for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati, alongside my friends Ethan Euchre, Jeff Wagstaff, and world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati. The FDA approved a new drug used to treat Alzheimer's back in July, despite criticisms from many physicians that there was not enough persuasive evidence to support its approval without more clinical trials. Well, joining us to discuss is Dr. Peter Rabens, co-author of the 36-Hour Day, the definitive guide to living or caring for patients with Alzheimer's. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Rabens.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us what the latest research is about this controversial Alzheimer's drug? And forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly, but is it Aduhelm? And why are many physicians against its use?
Sure. Yeah, well, it's pronounced Aduhelm.
Aduhelm.
The background is that Alzheimer's disease is caused by the accumulation of two abnormal proteins in the brain. Mm-hmm. One is called beta amyloid and the other is called tau. This new medicine was engineered to remove that beta amyloid protein, which evidence suggests is the beginning of the disease. And interestingly enough, it probably begins 20 years or so before first symptoms.
Wow.
And what the studies showed is that this medication removes up to 90% of that abnormal protein. So that should be very good. Mm-hmm. Now, it was only tested in people with very mild disease. And at the end of the study, even though it removed the abnormal protein, in one of the studies, people were not thinking any better after taking the medication. So the reason that it's controversial is that it was approved on the basis of removing this abnormal protein, but it's yet to show a benefit. Now, many people think, well, the benefit will show up over time. And because we have no treatments for it, we don't want to wait another year or two until people get worse before we approve it. So that's the basis of the approval, was that it removed this protein. The resistance of some people is, well, nobody got better, so removing the protein doesn't help people.
I literally reached out to a dozen or more different neuroscientists and experts in the field, and nobody wanted to talk about it. It was insane. So when I got hooked up with your book publicist, who said that you would talk about it, I was like, yes, finally. Weeks later, I couldn't comprehend why these doctors didn't, whatever side of the fence you lie on, why wouldn't you just talk about it? Why is everyone so afraid? I just didn't understand it.
Yeah. Well, I can guess, and it's a bit of an ethical dilemma, I suppose, for some people. You know, would you prescribe a medicine that you didn't think helped your patients? Right. So that even though it's approved, and so some people come down and say, well, of course I would. It's been approved by the FDA. If somebody wants it, I'm going to give it.
Sure.
That would be my view. But other people say it doesn't help people. It's very expensive. The drug itself costs $56,000 a year. Plus you have to get brain scans and come in every month for an infusion for a while. So the expense is quite high. So I'm guessing that that's the dilemma that all the people you contacted faced.
What I don't understand is if somebody is suffering with Alzheimer's, wouldn't you at least try in the hope that it would have positive effects once that the plaque is removed? Wouldn't you at least try if nothing else is working?
I would say yes, but, and it's a very big but, the medicine has a number of side effects, as all drugs do.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them are somewhat worrisome.
Okay.
One is that it causes brain swelling
Oh.
in about 30% of people. So it actually makes when you remove that protein, the brain temporarily swells. Now, so far, that hasn't resulted in lasting harm. But in other drugs that have been tried and failed, that brain swelling, in fact, seemed to speed the disease up. So that's one. And the other thing is that in about 20% of people, it causes teeny bleeds in the brain called microhemorrhages. And even though, again, so far, it doesn't look like any of those have evolved into a major stroke that you could pick up clinically, that's worrisome. So it's not a benign medicine. So when you're balancing the possible benefit, that you mentioned with the possible negative side effects, again, you can see why people are on the fence.
I read something, but I'm not really sure. I'm very poorly documented on this. But I said that removing that amyloid from the brain not only increase the possibilities that the Alzheimer's become worse, and the people don't have any benefits. Seems to be that the protein that is there is not protein that should be removed, should be left alone. I heard something like that, but I'm telling you, I'm totally undocumented on this.
Well, that's actually a great question, Dr. Benetti. People have been designing medications to remove this protein now for more than a decade, and all the other trials failed. So this is the first one that worked. Now, they targeted very mildly impaired people. So that might be one reason this one worked. In one of the trials, it did slightly improve people, but in the second study, it didn't. So I think it remains open. There is no evidence overall that it makes people worse. At least that hasn't been found in any of the studies as far as I know. So it's really more a question of, will there be a long-term benefit that outweighs these potential side effects?
Dr. Rabens, obviously we didn't really spend much time at all talking about your book, and we're almost out of time. But if you could, just kind of explain what makes this book such an important and definitive guide to caregivers and caretakers of patients of Alzheimer's.
Well, it's out on its 7th edition, so it's been around for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And I think the reason it's been around for so long and continues to sell is that it's really directed toward the families who are caregiving and the person with the disease. And it answers and addresses their questions. What might be causing the change in behavior in my loved one?
Yes.
What kinds of symptoms does it have? Because it's not just the disease of memory. It's very practical. And I think that's what's attracted people is we really, since we take care of people with this disease, we try to address every single issue that's come up in our long experience in caring for them.
Yeah, it's just such an awful disease to watch your loved ones suffer with, and having a guide or something that can step you through it so you're more understanding is a benefit to not only the would-be patient, but the families. Thank you so much for being on the program. Where can people get your book?
Most bookstores carry it. It's online, of course, and many libraries have it. So if somebody can't afford to buy it, if you go to your public library, they very likely will have a copy as well.
Thank you so much. Dr. Peter Rabens, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Take great care. Make sure you stay tuned. Coming up after the break, a story of recovery. World-renowned Dr. Bonatti created the Bonatti Spine procedures to minimize surgery, scarring, and recovery. 70,000 procedures have resulted in 98.75% satisfaction. Over half our patients suffer from failed surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail. Chris Freitas from Pinellas County, Florida, enjoys the simple things in life, playing golf, watching sports, and spending time with his family. But his enjoyment of these activities became difficult after a fall in the early 2000s.
I'd fallen from a folding table I was standing up on. I remember hitting my head, and I remembered getting up immediately, getting myself up immediately. I took about 10 steps and I went back down. There were other people there that had seen me fall, and I think the majority of the people were concerned about my head. I kept telling him, no, it's my low back. My low back, something's not right. I knew something wasn't right. My legs were tingling, something wasn't right. I was taken to an emergency room. X-rays were done, and I was told to go home with pain pills.
At the time, Chris was diagnosed with bulging discs, and his pain rapidly progressed in just 3 months. His condition forced him to undergo multiple back surgeries.
When I finally got in to see a neurosurgeon, and I was just being told, look, you've got damage to your L3, L4, L4, L5, and we're going to have to go in and fix that. When I first had the procedures done in the early 2000s, you stayed in the hospital for a few days. You're pumped full of narcotic medication. It was a very long, drawn-out procedures, and you were in a lot of pain before and after. Figured back pain was just going to be a part of my life. And it was just a part of everyday life.
As the years went on, Chris tried to deal with his continued pain by utilizing conservative treatments.
I did massage treatment. I did some acupuncture treatment. I tried the cryotherapy treatment. To me, those are temporary, little bouts of relief that you get, and a day or two later, you're right back where you started. I'd done over-the-counter medications. If anyone truly looks at the back of a bottle of Advil and you read the entire directions, it says if you have to take it longer than 10 days, you need to go see your physician. There's a clue. So it wasn't something that I wanted to take daily. I knew my body was getting worse. I knew my lower back was hurting worse. It had just progressed so much that I was just miserable. And it makes everyone around you miserable. Because you're not enjoying life like everyone should. I love to play golf. I couldn't swing a golf club like I normally want to. Just putting a shoe on, or having to bend or steady yourself with one arm to bend over to get one leg in a pair of pants was everyday routine. I just started noticing more and more, this is getting worse and worse and worse, and the pain is getting more intense. That's when I said I've got to do something and see if there's something out there that can help me along.
Being a greater Tampa Bay area resident, Chris had previously seen Bonati commercials on local TV. And in 2020, after online research continued to point him to the Institute, he called to see how they could help.
And again, I'm expecting they're not going to be able to see me for a couple months at best. When I'm told, okay, you can come in the next day, I'm thinking to myself, they're just going to try to fit me in, and I'm like, I don't want to wait and just sit in an uncomfortable chair for however long. And it was not that at all. It was such a great surprise. In a bad situation, it was the best thing that ever happened. It was the best thing that could happen. When I spoke with Dr. Bonati, I'd already had the MRI done and x-rays done. He knew the details. He knew the prior surgeries. You could tell he reviewed my file. There was no doubt about it. And then to be shown through a color-coded chart of the nerves in your lower back and why you're having pain in a certain area, maybe down a leg or behind a knee or in the groin area, and to have that explained to you, that is just, there's nothing better than knowing what someone's talking about and you understand what they're speaking about and it makes total sense. This nerve, if you follow this nerve by this color, you'll see it's coming around here right where you're having pain. And then he brings up your film and shows you. It was my L2, L3, L3, L4, L4, L5, L5, S1. There was a lot of scar tissue, bone spurs, just wear and tear, the spinal stenosis. I'd probably gone too long.
Having scheduled the procedures, Chris began his journey to recovery. Using conscious IV sedation, the Bonati spine procedures offer a unique experience for our guests.
I was told I was going to be awake during the entire procedure, and explained that you don't need to be under anesthesia, which anyone who's been under anesthesia understands that going under is not so hard, but coming out of it is, you feel just terrible. Being able to talk with Dr. Bonati while the surgery is occurring, being able to watch the surgery if you actually want to view it yourself, he allows you that capability to see what he's actually doing. When he tells you, okay, that everything looks good, and and he's speaking to you right when he's finishing, saying, okay, on this surgery, the one that he was doing on that certain day, everything looks good. And next thing you know, you're being moved into recovery. And I was never out. And the nurses in there, they're, how do you feel, this, that, they're checking. And I'm like, I feel great. I'm like, that's it. I recall during one of the surgeries, they wanted to raise my right leg during surgery because Dr. Bonati wasn't 100% sure that he'd gotten everything out of there. And he says, when I put you back to the recovery room, I want that 100% fixed. They did it, and sure enough, I feel a little pain there. He goes back to work, they do the same thing, and I'm like, that pain is gone. And so there's an instant relief scenario right there. Just right there during surgery, that pain's gone. That was huge.
The Bonati spine procedures are so effective because they provide an immediate return to movement, walking, and regaining muscle strength. This speeds up recovery and allows guests to return to a pain-free life.
Once you get to the recovery room, the nurses, again, they'll come up to you and ask how you're feeling, and they're just to make sure that you're, do you feel like you can stand? And I'm thinking, I just had back surgery, is this supposed to be like this? And they ask you if you'll stand up, and they've got you if you need support. I didn't feel like I needed it at all. And they're like, okay, we're gonna walk with you in probably like 10, 15 steps. This is unreal. I know what just happened to me. I know I just had back surgery, and I'm completely alert. It was the best decision I ever made. The pain that I thought I was going to live with the rest of my life was gone. These surgical scars are minimal. I can't imagine any place being better than going to Dr. Bonati. I just can't. I don't have the pain that I used to live with. And I can't thank Dr. Bonati enough and the entire Bonati staff for everything they've done. I'm truly grateful for that. They gave me my life back.
Bonati was the one that helped me completely. Thank you for giving my career back to me.
He said, don't tell me, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you and tell me if I'm correct. And so he did.
The good news this time is it was not open back surgery.
He was a doctor that didn't want to fillet my back open like a fish.
During the whole operation, I was awake. I was talking to the doctor.
He did the surgery on the left side, and a week later, I was back in the gym.
When somebody can help you to where you can recover and where you can do the things that you were able to do before, you just become thankful.
It just opens up doors that you thought were closed.
I love you, Doc.
Thank you so much for listening and watching American Medicine Today. I am Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Euchre and Jeff Wagstaff. Now, for the last decade, we've watched the far left move the United States further and further from the foundational truths that made us the greatest country in history, and many people have truly had enough. Joining us to discuss her fight for the soul of America is Heidi St. John, congressional candidate in the state of Washington and author of Mom Strong book series. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you talk about how elected officials should actually keep their word and maintain our trust. That hasn't happened quite yet. Can you explain?
Imagine that.
I think most people, including myself, are very frustrated with the fact that we've been pursuing the American dream in this country for now decades, and the people that we've elected to represent us are not only not representing us, they're actively undermining the republic. And so for me, I've had enough, and I just decided I'm going to take a break from a very successful career as an author and a speaker, and the founder of a homeschool resource center. And our children, Jay and I have 7 children, and we decided it's time to start putting our, really more than our money, but taking our actual presence to Washington, D.C. And really, this is a family affair. So you pointed out rightly that I'm an author of the Mom Strong book series, that we have 7 children and 3 grandkids, and we love this country. We think it's worth fighting for.
I ask this pretty much anytime we get into politics on the show. Where do you think we went wrong? I mean, we have just shifted so far to the left now. Well, most of us, I would say. We certainly haven't.
Right.
But, we're sliding into socialism, which is exactly what many Democrats want. Where did we go wrong, and how the hell do we get back?
Well, I think the main place that we went wrong can be found in our education system. So if you look to see what's happening in our public school system, our elementary schools, our high schools, obviously our universities, this is where critical race theory was born in 1989. So they have been doing what we have called a slow march through our institutions, turning our kids against this country. And so now we have kids that we're churning them out literally by the hundreds of thousands every single year. And they hate this country. They think we're inherently racist. They believe that our nation is evil, and they have no trouble fighting against it. And when Barack Obama said that he wanted to fundamentally transform the nation, that's what he meant. Yes. And we didn't believe him, and we should have believed him.
Well, he said it. So when somebody actually says something, perhaps you need to take them at their word.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then we're so far down the socialist rabbit hole now. It's going to take patriots, men and women of courage who are willing to stand in the gap and say, no more, not on my watch. This ends right here. America has never been, will never be a socialist nation anywhere that socialism has ever been tried. And frankly, we're looking at Marxism in the nation right now, cultural Marxism. Anywhere these things have been tried, the results have been disastrous. Yeah. So I don't know why we think it's going to be better here in the U.S.
We realize that some of the things that we've done in the past, slavery, we could all admit was wrong. But the part that I don't understand is how erasing our history as opposed to learning from our history is going to move us forward. And after hearing you speak, I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, they're erasing our history on purpose, because what they want to do is get rid of our sense of national identity. If they can strip us of national identity, if they can strip us of patriotism, if they can boil this country down to a politically correct entity that is willing to sacrifice our history so that we can apologize for the sins of the people that supposedly created this country into the racist place that the progressives will tell you that it is, that's all they need. And they know that he who owns the language owns the culture. Yes. And so this is why you see people trying to remove the terms of male and female. This is Nancy Pelosi, right? Trying to strip the terms of gender off of the floor of the House of Representatives. These people are not even rooted in reality. And so what we're dealing with right now really is a cultural Marxist takeover of our nation. And it will require every American who loves this country to get off the bench and onto the battlefield, to start running for city council, for school board, for mayor, to step into these positions of authority. And we have not done that. We have ceded this. We have ceded the territory to the progressives and to the radical left in this nation. And now the country's at the jumping off place, and we can't stand by anymore and let it continue.
Here's the thing, Heidi, you said earlier that, you're a patriot. We need more patriots to stand up, fight against it, and speak. And the thought occurred to me, what platform are they going to use? Because they're being shut down by big tech all over the place. Is Trump even back up online? I don't even know. But, it's hard to have a conservative voice be heard these days because they shut you down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so what has to happen, I think the American people, conservatives in particular, We've forgotten that we actually are more powerful than they would like us to believe. Why are they trying to silence our voices? Because they know that our ideas are better. And our ideas are what moves the needle. And so rather than allow the discourse to happen in this nation, they are silencing dissent. That should terrify every American, because right now they're silencing conservatives. And I promise you, as soon as the voices that they don't like speak up against something that they disagree with, they'll try to silence you too. Mm-hmm. This is something that's going to have to be handled in Congress. This is something that's going to be have to happen, I think, from the highest levels of our government to stop this technological overreach that is Google and YouTube and Facebook. I just got out of a 30-day lockout on Facebook because I said a word that they didn't like.
What was that word?
And so I said the word Nazi. And I said it.
They throw that around like it's gravy.
Yeah, I mean, they try to call President Bush that, and President Trump, and anyone that doesn't agree with them. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. And what's interesting about me is I said it, I actually used it in context, and I said it was very sad to me that men and women gave their lives in World War II fighting the Nazis, only to have the radical left use that word flippantly. And we call people Nazis that we disagree with. Well, Facebook didn't like that. And of course, I have trolls on my page. So they took it down. I appealed. They came back for the first time, because I've been locked out several times. They came back and said, "Oh, we're sorry, our bad." They put my post back up and they left me locked out. What? And so what we've got here is a terrible overreach, and it needs to be, it's going to have to be addressed in Congress.
Yeah, you need accountability if they're going to start censoring and taking away the right to free speech. Can you quickly summarize what Mom Strong is about?
Yeah, so the Mom Strong book series came out in 2017. The flagship book is called Becoming Mom Strong, How to Fight with All That's in You for Your Family and Your Faith. And as a mother of 7, my oldest daughter is 30 years old now. She's raising 3 of her own kids. And I believe that the world, particularly feminists, have devalued the role, the incredible, precious role of motherhood. And so it really is a call to the front lines to these moms to say, hey, what you're doing is important. Yes. What you're doing makes a difference for our nation, and engage with your children. It's worth it. Very best thing that my husband and I, my husband Jay and I have been married for 32 years. Very best thing we ever did was to have a passel of kids. It's been the honor of my lifetime to raise 7 children. And I want to bring the honor back to motherhood.
Thank you. And evidently the love and appreciation for life and men. It shouldn't be because you call yourself a feminist, you hate men. Mm-hmm. Should never be that way. Well, thank you for joining us on the program, Heidi St. John. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching American Medicine Today. Make sure you check us out next Saturday, 4 p.m. on Newsmax. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the number below. You can tweet at Dr. Bonatti using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.